Mr. Speaker, peace in Karamoja is a prerequisite for socio-economic transformation in the neighborhood. Like Father Onen said here, for long we said Karamoja, we cannot wait for Karamoja. And because we did not wait for Karamoja, our neighbors have suffered. And I think it's now time that we move together. Mr. Speaker, in the 1960s, it's on record that the Kabaka, Mutesa, sacrificed his whole salary as a king to support education in Karamoja. It's on record. It's also on record that the likes of the Honorable Pulukol, that again Father Onen tried to allude to, went to school through force. The parish chiefs at that time, the Nyamparas, would collect children and take them to school forcefully. But these were not government schools. These were church schools. My late father used to tell me that he would walk from Kotido on Saturday, be in school on Sunday, attend classes up to Wednesday, and walk back to Kotido because there were no boarding schools. And that was Lotome in Napak district. Now, given all these circumstances, Mr. Speaker, we made an effort as Karamojong. We introduced something called alternative basic education for Karamoja. We thought that we needed to help the learners to continue to do their work. Because one thing we found out was that if you remove the boy child or a girl child from the household to take to school, there would be a disequilibrium of labor because each of them has a role to perform. So ABEC was introduced to allow the herds boys to study in the morning after milking the animals before they graze. They go to graze, and in the evening. That recorded progress because we produced graduates out of ABEC. Unfortunately, conflicts in the region, cattle rustling, could not allow the mobile school to continue. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like to make the following amendments to the motion. That besides the idea of having a policy on free and compulsory education, we also would like to urge government to support the Karamoja Peace and Technology University to build a chain to support the education in Karamoja. Karamoja Peace and Technology University is a university that for the first time is going to be established or is in Karamoja with the support of the Catholic Church, the International Catholic Lawyers Association, and the government of Uganda. And President Museveni is the founding chancellor. Now, why should this university be adopted or be included in this motion? As already submitted by the move of the motion, the children of Karamoja need to get to the schools, but they also need to have the schools that will pick on them. Like Father Onen was saying, where did this educated Karamojong come from? People studied outside Karamoja, and those who studied outside Karamoja were children of chiefs. Those of us whose parents were not chiefs. I remember for 2 years, I used to ride a bicycle from Kotido to NTC Ngeta in order to be in school. How many Karamojong can do that now? So, Mr. Speaker, my proposal to amend the motion is to add the words that to also urge the government to support the Karamoja Peace and Technology University in Karamoja because it's going to be a catalyst of mindset change. It's going to be a catalyst of economic transformation. And we believe that in the next 10 years, we will have taken 350,000 school-going age children to school, and that will be the joy of Father Onen because there will then be more Christians coming to seek for penance and prayers from Father Onen. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. For Karamoja, pre-primary and boarding education is very important. All these people who are now reading, running around, if they were educated like us, they wouldn't be there. We would have reduced raiders completely. So now, the rest of the country is moving. We better move the country together in a unified manner. In maybe 20 years' time, when there is mindset change, then other things can now relax. But by now, it is high time we sweep all of them from the villages and we educate them, give them free and compulsory education. The whole country will just be safe, automatic. You change their mind and we move. These people are getting jobs, they are getting alternative ways of livelihood, and that will be the end.
Thank you,
and I am
Minister.
very happy all of you are supporting. We are Ugandans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now,
Is shouldered by the women. She must ensure that there is food, she must ensure there is a home, and she must ensure that the children go to school. So you can imagine the burden our women are carrying. When she is overwhelmed, the children automatically support her. They become laborers. The rate of child labor in our region is so high. When they are overwhelmed, they end up in the streets begging. The children do it to support their mothers. We have repatriated a number of our children from the cities in our country. 2 years ago, there were women and children here in Gulu City coming from Kotido. About 60 of them, they had come to look for a living. We sent them back to Kotido. There was another group that came from Kabong to Busia. We sent them back when they were there to Kabong. There are thousands of the children from Napak who are begging in Kampala. The reason is this one. The women, the mothers, because of the cultural dynamics, the mothers are overwhelmed. They cannot afford both household welfare and plus now education, the cost of education itself. I support this motion and I appeal that you support us in this one, honorable colleagues. When you do it, you will liberate not just the children who cannot access an education at the moment, but also the women, so that they will be able to focus their energy on the other welfare needs. Because the burden of tuition, in addition to what they're already carrying, is too much. I plead with you, colleagues, that we allow this to pass. It will be good for the region. For every woman in Karamoja who doesn't access an income or even a living to sustain this burden, that burden is multiplied by 6 because we produce 6 children. And then you produce 6 children who will also be poor. Another one, so you will also produce. The multiplier effect on the economic burden for this country is so high if we cannot have these children access an education. I submit.
thank you. We are limited by the law as Parliament, Article 93 of the Constitution. That's why you're seeing it's a motion for urging, meaning we are sending it to you in Cabinet. So when you reach in Cabinet, please give that example you've had and push harder so that it can be supported.
Mr. Speaker and members, successive governments had made a lot of attempt to bring peace in Karamoja. Mr. Speaker, I want to concentrate on why has there been failure. Government after government failed to bring peace in Karamoja. Mr. Speaker and members, the insecurity of Karamoja is caused by the known people. Why it is complicated is it's being caused by people who are known. Why do I say they are known? It is easy to predict who will be a warrior. It is easy to predict because there's a roadblock. You reach a point, either you go to school or you become a raider. There are only 2 ways in Karamoja. Either you go to school or you become a warrior. You know the function of a warrior. There, no business, no what, no farming, there's drought, everything is in total confusion. So the only chance left is either you go to school and become members here, or you branch to the other school and begin raiding. Now, Mr. Speaker, which means we already know who are the incoming candidates, for raiding. Mr. Speaker, these are young children who will fail to go to school. Mr. Speaker, when you hear the Karamojong members of parliament are asking, educate all the Karamojong, that is what they're meaning. They are putting the road into one so that everybody goes to educate themselves and therefore they don't raid. Which means the solution to the problem of Karamoja is one of the simplest, but there will be lack of commitment. Mr. Speaker, we are here to seek for commitment. Commitment. One, once you educate all the Karamojong and Karamoja become peaceful, Mr. Speaker, you will have solved big problems in Acholi, you will have solved big problems in Lango, you will have rescued the Bateso, you will have sorted the Bagisu, and Basebe also, including international neighbors, they will be resting. Mr. Speaker, it is cheaper to educate the Karamojong so that peace is in Karamoja, to make all neighbors rest. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice that Kapato University, Karamoja University Peace and Technology, is sensitive, has been tailor-made in order to suit the circumstances in Karamoja at the moment. You can have all these universities, Karamoja will never go there. But Kapatu is a new university being developed, arising out of the situation in the region. It is my prayer, Mr. Speaker and members, that for this parliament and the record, that they have sorted the problem of Karamoja by educating the Karamojong. So I support that Kapatu University be supported by government of Uganda so that it can answer the precarious problems in the region. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Norman, this is what the President was talking about yesterday. For is a blueprint from government on which kind of support they want from Parliament. Is it budgetary support? They are going to propose, put money in the budget?
Budgetary support.
You know, so we are waiting for government guidance.
I have had the opportunity to teach. I taught Dr. Loki. I taught another Karamoja person who holds one of the records as being the best, the most brilliant veterinary doctor that has ever passed through Makerere, called Dr. Irukor. In 2011, while I was campaigning in Matani, I picked a young boy called Alex Rochali. He was in P6 by then. I supported him. I took him to Kampala. I paid his school fees. Now he has graduated with BBA and is working in Moroto. These people in Karamoja, those young people, they are only missing opportunity to go to school. And we must support them. I interacted recently, 2 weeks ago, when the speaker sent us to Karamoja. I interacted with the LOC chairperson of NAPAC. NAPAC has 59 parishes. Only 22 have got primary schools, only 22. 37 of the parishes of NAPAC, they don't have a primary school. NAPAC produces 80% of the children who are on the streets in Kampala because they don't have education. I'm very supportive that we don't only provide compulsory boarding education, but also we provide schools all over Karamoja. There should be a project and affirmative action which should help Karamoja people to go to school. We are losing brains which would have innovated. Very brilliant people in Karamoja. Right, Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this motion and it should be with urgency.
Thank you. I hope
the Ministry of Education very clear. The mandate is to provide quality education for all children in Uganda. And I'm happy that the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Article 30, stipulated that education is a fundamental right for our children. In that spirit, Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, to ensure all our children have right to education, brought on board the universal education for our children, primary in 1997 and secondary in 2007. And the principle and the spirit of the universal education is to leave no child behind. And there should be no barriers for our children to access education, Mr. Speaker. As a result of universal education that was brought on board, the enrollment of our children in schools increased drastically For instance, in 1995, when UPE was brought in board, from 2.5, the enrollment rose to 5.3 in 1998. Thereafter, in 2023, it went to 8.5, and today we are speaking about 10.9 million learners enrolled in primary education. This is because of the principle of universal education. And the principle is to increase access to education, especially to the disadvantaged children. And also, the design in that principle is to construct classrooms, sanitation facilities for primary administrative block, while secondary has ICT block, multipurpose hall, and science block. There was no provision for boarding facilities in terms of dormitories and what it takes to have a boarding facility. Mr. Speaker, despite all this high enrollment in universal education, we as education fraternity have seen challenges in terms of high rates of dropout, uncoordinated charges of fees, climate changes that has caused problems for children to access school, the floods, the destructions in our school. We've seen violence against children and overcrowding in classes. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education indeed recognized the challenges that are unique in areas in Karamoja region, in island communities, where we have seen children coming to school using boats, using canoes. We've seen challenges in areas that are prone to disasters. As a result of floods, we see day scholars not able to cross the river, to cross the bridge because of disaster in those places. Mr. Speaker, last year, on 17th of March, 2023, Cabinet, under the chair of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, approved a document that was presented by Mama Janet, the Minister of Education and Sports. And it is about government implementing free and compulsory universal education for all our children in Uganda. Starting with the primary education, then we move to secondary education. And this will bring on board issues to do with increment in enrollment, recruitment of teachers, funds to increase capitation grants and what have you. And Mr. Speaker, we are to start with primary, then move to secondary. And because the funds that needed to start this free and compulsory education went up to over 300 billion, we had to prioritize with the upcoming AFCON activities in the country. Mr. Speaker, in that meeting, my colleague, the Minister of Karamoja Affairs, was there. My colleague, Honorable Anyakun, who ably articulated the issues of Karamoja and challenges of disaster-prone places and island communities. And it was discussed with the proposal of granting affirmative action, special consideration for Karamoja, for islands that are like the ones we know, and the disaster-prone places. And the special affirmative action is to be specifically on boarding section. That comes on board together with the compulsory free universal education for all. I recall very vividly this was discussed, and the president himself saw the challenges in Karamoja and indeed recommended that the ministry should further discuss these challenges, and we see to it that the best solutions could be provided for those specific areas as we move to implement the universal compulsory education. Mr. Speaker, I welcome the motion, but I will wish it is not only limited to Karamoja. As Cabinet looked at it, Karamoja is not alone. We have the disaster-prone places. Like I talk about the island, I talk about the disaster-prone places. So that is what Cabinet is looking at. But Mr. Speaker, permit me for this Parliament to appreciate the overall enrollment in our country, together with the national statistics. Because when we speak, we need to speak on evidence-based information. We need to speak on scientific information. On primary enrollment, Mr. Speaker, as Uganda, we have got a total of 10,976,773. This is as of June 2024, the enrollment of primary children in Uganda. The total number of primary schools in Uganda, we have 43,534. The teachers that has been captured under the IMIS, we have 196,364. The distribution for Northern Region, Acholi, the total enrollment in primary school in Acholi, we have 544,434, which represent 4.86% of the total enrollment. If you permit me, Mr. Speaker, I just want to give the percentage. Lango, the enrollment represents 7.17% of the national enrollment. West Nile represent 10.2% of the national enrollment. Karamoja represent 2.02% of the national enrollment. And in total, the Northern Region, Mr. Speaker, represents 24.35% of the total enrolled children in the country. In terms of primary schools, the Northern Region, the total number of primary schools in Northern Uganda stands at 11.49%.
Honorable colleagues, the minister is giving you information. So I don't know what's wrong with information. You might disagree with the information, okay? Honorable Betty Amdat, what is your procedure matter?
Matter is that, thank you, the minister, for the presentation, but I'm pissed up because she's bringing the information when we are just laying our motion about the Highland people. Right Honorable Speaker, in a program or when a government wants to start a program, it is good to have what we call piloting areas. It will be our plea to the government to consider Karamoja as a piloting center because we have a lot of problems. Members understand the situation we are in. The agencies, we are now, there's peace in Karamoja. Why can't we settle and find out what can be done to bring the region
What
to
is
be
your
seen?
procedure,
Thank
Madam
you.
Honorable? Okay, the minister to give a response to our submissions. These are her views and views of the ministry. You might disagree with the views, but she's entitled to those views and clarifications from her side. So let the minister give the submission. You might disagree with the information, but she's a minister. Honorable Minister?
I gave this information as of 17th March 2023, what was discussed in Cabinet. about free and compulsory education and proposal for affirmative action for Karamoja, island community and disaster. It is something that was discussed last year in Cabinet. Thank you to allow me to proceed. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the enrollment of our children, the national enrollment vis-a-vis the region of Northern Uganda, and the total number of teachers we have in this region vis-a-vis the national position and the number of primary schools. In total, to make the matter short, the northern region has 21.49% of the total teachers in the country. In terms of primary schools, the northern region has a percentage of 11.49. That is the statistics that we have for primary enrollment for Acholi, Lango, West Nile, Karamoja, and Northern Uganda. For the secondary education, Mr. Speaker, as of June 2024, from our EMIS data, Uganda has enrolled a total of 1,710,403 students in secondary education. Out of that, the teachers in Uganda in secondary school, we have 71,918, while the schools of secondary education in Uganda is 7,466.
But Honourable Minister, you see, you are not responding to the motion. The motion was requesting you. In fact, you are responding to the petition, which is an item that we have not yet handled. You're on item number 3, and yet we are handling number 5. They are requesting you that can you introduce boarding facilities in Karamoja as a government? Simple.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. I thought I could come to that the last, but let me straight away go to that area. As I gave the background for the principles of universal education, which does not cater for boarding section, Mr. Speaker, my ministry indeed gives permission for schools that will wish to operate as a boarding section only after meeting the required minimum standard and the basic requirement for a boarding section. A study was done and we found out, Mr. Speaker, quite a number of boarding schools that are running boarding schools are not meeting the minimum standards in terms of the boarding facilities. Over 52.5% of boarding facilities have not met the minimum standard. They don't have the required place for the boarding schools. They do not meet the standard for sanitation, and the electrical installations equally is wanting. And of course, there are many gaps that have been found out for those boarding sections. Because of the gaps that are glaring in boarding sections, my ministry is still studying the proposal, as I said, that was discussed in Cabinet to ensure some special considerations for some regions to have a boarding facility.
Thank you.
This is because...
Honourable Minister, I've run out of time.
Thank you. So I beg to submit that we still be given time to study, carry out, so that we present the finding to Cabinet before bringing to Parliament. Thank you.
Honourable colleagues, I now put the question that the motion for a resolution of Parliament urging government formulate a policy on free compulsory boarding school education for the Karamoja sub-region be adopted with proposed amendments. Those in favour say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. So I invoke my powers under Rule 30, Sub-Rule 6, and refer the petition to the Minister for Education for handling and reporting back within 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you.